master time? Where do the horns and reeds combine? Where else does teamwork sound so fine? Let's hear it for the bands. Where else are people so well matched? Where else are friendships so well hatched? No slurs, no frets or strings attached. Let's hear it for the bands. Kids learn technique and tradition, 20 people moving as one. Kids learn friendly competition, good vibes with mallets towards none. Some days the singer's voice is gone, drums play but not with the baton. Unfazed the bands play on and on, so let's hear it for the bands. Let's hear it for the bands. Let's hear it for the bands. Some of Westford, Massachusetts' finest bands are taught and nurtured by the Westford Academy Music Department. Please welcome them to Barry's Place. Hi.
Hi, Barry.
Why don't you introduce yourselves?
I'm Karen St. George. I teach chorus, guitar, ukulele, and AP Music Theory at Westford Academy.
I'm Ken Culver. I teach orchestras and guitar and piano.
I'm George Arsenault. I teach all of the bands at Westford Academy and electronic music courses like electronic music composition and songwriting.
Huh. And what instruments do you guys play?
I started playing flute in 3rd grade, and then I joined the chorus, and that's what I became passionate about, and so I'm a singer, a soprano.
I play violin mostly. I've also a little viola, a little cello, piano, and guitar.
Much to my parents' dismay, I started as a percussionist, and I stayed a percussionist and am still playing actively today as a percussionist. I play all the band instruments a little bit, but my favorite is percussion.
Uh-huh. Did you have heroes or mentors as musicians?
Absolutely. I think my music teachers growing up in elementary school and in high school were definitely some of the most wonderful people that I worked with. There was a couple that taught our marching band together in high school, and then in my college years, my marching band director was a great mentor for me and still is today, and we just have worked with some great people over the years here in Westford.
I had a couple really influential teachers as I was growing up. Of course, it makes a huge difference, but at undergrad, I worked with Peter Sacco, who was like a real inspiration to me, and I had a very supportive professor there, John Anthony, and then I worked with Paul Phillips in grad school, and he was wonderful. Like, I still think of him when I conduct.
All of my best memories, I think, from school, if I think back to all of them, they were from a music room with a music teacher. So there were lots of them. I grew up in Chelmsford, right nearby. And certainly my band directors through my time in Chelmsford, and even working at the University of Massachusetts, back with Blair Betancourt, and he taught at the UMass Youth Wind Ensemble. I also used to go into the New England Conservatory on the weekends and work with as many faculty as I possibly could, and so many of them left a really big kind of impact on what I do today. And I think back to what would they do in that situation now in the classroom is often a guiding kind of direction for me.
Did you have mentors as teachers, or can you explain how you decided to teach as well as do music?
Yeah,
besides eating?
Like George said, all of my best experiences throughout school were always in the music classroom. So I had Vicky Vieira from grades K all the way through high school. She became my voice teacher when I was in high school, when I was no longer with her, when I left her in 8th grade. my band directors were the Studleys, Joe and Levada Studley down in Falmouth at the Falmouth Marching Band. They ran the music department pretty much down there, along with the choral teachers that were there. And throughout college, I think all of the professors that I had were just great mentors that were also music educators. So I think that they set the groundwork for me as an educator today and as a professional today in music. So Dan Lutz definitely is a person that I would consider one of my great mentors. And Blair, having taught with him for 12 years and student taught under him here in Westford, was another amazing mentor that I had the ability to work with for so long.
Yeah, well, and it's talking about Blair, it almost feels like you're not doing your job if you don't steal from everybody. And so there was Blair Betancourt and Dick Hansen, who was the orchestra director at the Westford Academy before I got there. I still remember having my interview with Julie Otteson, and she taught me so much about how to make schedules and how she ran things, and she's super organized. So, yeah, but I can't think of anyone that I didn't steal from.
And we continue to. While the subject changes, music changes, it evolves, what we do, how we practice music changes. The kids don't in many ways. Kids are still kids, and there's some of the same strategies that our teachers used with us when we were younger. We can look back and see how they'd be impacted and how they'd impact our students now. So I certainly think about my private instruction and my classroom instruction. I studied with Gary Spellisy over in Chelmsford for many years, all the way through high school as a private teacher. And then some of the great Chelmsford High School band directors that I worked under and worked with over the years. And then coming to Westford, just my coworkers, and seeing when I came to Westford Academy, I guess 6 years ago now, I had Karen and Ken who had done such a great job there, and to see how do they operate in the classroom, what do they do, how do they relate to their students, and it really is just about borrowing from all the great teachers that you see.
It's a really good community at Westford Academy. I mean, we also, like, I'll take things from non-music teachers, like we work together with Mr. Towers a lot, and just other faculty that we know will end up talking at lunch or something.
Which brings me, how does teamwork operate with the three of you?
I think it operates really well. I know we talk about that a lot, that in every teacher, of course, every workplace and every office, you're going to have certain strengths. And any professional that's reflective about their practice is going to understand that they have certain weaknesses as well. So I think we kind of try to find what we're strong with, what we might need some help with, and then lean on each other for those times.
And I think it helps that we're musicians. We're used to collaborating with other people anyway, and that's what you do as a musician in an ensemble whenever you're working to make music, and it's the same thing in our classroom situation. Someone remarked one time, "How come you know so much about the band program?" Because it's my family. It's what I know most about, is that's my department, and we help each other out. We help publicize each other's programs, and it just comes naturally to us, I think.
Yeah, and we have certain tasks that that we don't share, that one of us will take it over, so it gets done better that way. But in general, it's just more about being supportive of what people want to do, being flexible about spaces and dates and times that we need to schedule things.
And we try to be really careful as well about making sure, because the students will often feel like, well, maybe they're pulled in one direction or another. I love band. I have a tremendous bias towards band. I love it. And I want every student at Westford Academy to play in my band. But they have other agendas, and other teachers, of course, have other things to do as well. So we try to make sure that we're really respectful of the students and making sure they understand that we're all on the same team. And while we might have different tasks that we want to complete, that they know, we understand that they might have different priorities and that they have multiple priorities, and we really try to help them navigate that as a young professional rather than feeling like they're letting down an adult, which we really try to make them understand they're not.
Do you have to do any coordinating with non-music teachers in terms of kids' workloads?
Yeah, yeah, we do. And it's sort of informal in that the students let us know, and of course it's around the end of term or end of quarter and that sort of thing. You can tell when things are really hard for them. And usually that's not a concert time for us, so I find myself giving a little time then, that if there's a student who is behind because they've been out of school or it's a particularly busy time of the year, that we find some time to give the students then, and then when we're getting ready for our concerts, then we're a little more demanding, but that's one way.
I think a big part of that as well is understanding the entirety of the student's schedule and what they're expected to do. Westford Academy is such a wonderful school. There's so many opportunities, and helping our students navigate all of their kind of hopes and desires in their schedules while still having time to come take part in the arts in a meaningful way.
And I think one of the ways we try to respect our students is through teaching them and mentoring them in how to plan and budget their time. One of the things that I'm really sensitive to as an AP teacher is the homework load, and understanding that they have so much from so many other classes, and I need to make sure that I'm planning my homework so that it's appropriate for whatever they're practicing and not overloading them with busy work. And on the same line with concerts, making sure that they know when the concerts are well in advance, and hopefully they can budget their time for their other classes surrounding the concert times.
Yeah.
AP is?
Advanced placement, so very intense course loads with big exams at the end of the school year.
Who makes curriculum for your department and for your areas?
For the most part, we do, and that's certainly, we don't do it in a bubble, and there are state standards that we have like every subject, and there's certainly best practices that we follow with regards to that. But because each of us teach such a specialized subject, a lot of times we're kind of considered that lone wolf. We talk to each other a lot, and you'll often see that something that I've done in band will work great in orchestra, or more often vice versa. And we'll take those ideas from each other. As far as very strict kind of standard curriculum, we look to all of our state standards and we review that regularly to make sure we're taking care of all of our requirements with that regard. And a lot of our standards and all of our curriculum, especially for our performance ensembles, comes down to repertoire selection. And it's exciting. I love being able to select repertoire and have that be our curriculum.
We do we do coordinate this with the other levels. We have a curriculum coordinator, Andrea Mejia, who works hard to make sure that kids are going from one school to another and one level to another, and that it follows on. So like I'll get together with Julie Otteson, who teaches strings at the middle schools, to make sure I know what students are, how they're coming in, so that I match up to where she's leaving off, and so there is coordination that way. And
I think there's great continuum that we have working with our counterparts that are in the middle school. I work with Andrea Watson and Deb Benschneider that are both down at the middle schools. And then we have a few other choir directors in the elementary schools. Kathy Lano, for example, teaches the 5th grade chorus. So we work together on repertoire choices. And I think that's one of the great things about teaching music, is that our job never stagnates. Our curriculum is not the same because we have different repertoire choices that we can make each year.
And we'll have the kids, we have the kids for 4 years at the high school, so parents can't come to the same concert every year. It's always got to be new and refreshed, and it's a different group of students with different strengths. So you do some good collaborations with Vicki and the elementary
Absolutely,
schools as
yeah,
well.
we do a lot. A lot of what, and it's so hard in the arts, of course, is how do we sometimes assess exactly what we're doing? How do you define what we're doing in the arts? Whereas perhaps some other subjects that might fit into a box a little cleaner. The arts are such an important part of everyone's life. It's a moral imperative to have the arts in your life. So how do we make it work in the public schools? And at least one of those things is to show students their potential for growth and seeing that satisfaction of learning an instrument and staying with an instrument and sticking through the difficulties and the not so fun times so that you can get to the good times. Establishing grit and all of those qualities that we want our students to have, but how do you teach empathy? It's very difficult. Well, the arts do it so very well. So one of those ways also is that we start them from the young ages and show them. So one of the things we're doing with elementary band and middle school band, we bring them to the high school and we'll show them the high school students, and we put on a big concert for them in December, which the students have named Bandemonium. They named it. I love it, though. We have a great time. We just bring them all in and play some wonderful music for them. We bring back the 8th graders back in February, and we'll perform with them as well. We call that Winter Wonder Band. We've got more. And finally, of course, the town Apple Blossom Parade in the spring, which is just a highlight of our year, where all of the middle school 6 through 12 students march together downtown. We get T-shirts for them, and they play some music for the whole community so they can see what their students have been doing all year.
As your music program is something that my son was in from, I think, middle school through high school. And one of the things that I noted, and you're welcome to throw in your 2 cents on this, is that he learns to work as a member of a team. I think in some ways different than you do in other areas. I know there's teamwork and lab work and stuff in the sciences because I went through pre-med. And there's also a social life built into it, which I don't see in other courses. And my experience was the majority of my son's social life came from the bands, even though he had friends, through all those years.
Well, part of it is that we have the hours outside the school day, where evening rehearsals and concert times and things like that, where it isn't just, it's built around what we do, and then it's outside of the frame of school a little bit. So it does, there'll be time beforehand, or we'll need to have a meal, or there'll be time after where they do socialize while they're waiting for their parents or eating or things like that.
We have shared visions and goals as well, and that's somewhat unique. There's certainly other, and the whole Westford Academy community has shared visions and goals, but within our courses, the students know coming in, I could be first violin, first stand, I could be the best singer in the room, I could be the best flute player, whatever, but when it comes time to performing, we're all performing together. And there's a shared vision and a shared goal that you have there. I think that breaks down some of those maybe individual barriers. So yeah, a lot of kids that are in these communities, this is a huge part of their social life and kind of grows from there.
We talk a lot at the beginning of the year how our test is not necessarily on paper with pencil. It's in front of our parents, in front of our peers and our friends and our family, and we all work together towards putting out our best on that stage at the concerts that we're performing in, and how there may be some of us that are stronger singers or performers than others, but what we are able to put into that performance together is what matters the most.
Mm-hmm. And much like any community, while I might have a student who might not be my strongest player, they probably and likely and perhaps have another skill that's just as important to our community in technology or setting up. Maybe they're just very organized and they're very good at getting people to move in one direction. So like our entire community in Westford, it's not just about our star on any one particular thing, but recognizing everybody's strengths and how they're very meaningful to our community.
Mm-hmm. What goals do you have for the school year? And are there any changes from last year?
To continue growing as a teacher, to continue the growth that my students are getting out of their education and out of their music education. We're planning our New York trip again this year. Hopefully we can go perform on Carnegie Hall on that stage again. So more exciting venues to perform in. We have our town-wide choral nights again this year. We've got our concerts that are collaborations with the orchestra and the band. And just as a teacher, just never stagnating, always making sure that I'm learning something. We have new technology that we're getting into this year, some smart music that I've never used before, and it's going to be a challenge for me. So my goal is to start wrapping my brain around that and getting my students involved in that, because it is very much student-centered. So it'll help them practice and help them learn their music better, and it'll help me too.
Yeah, it's a little, that's sort of an individual responsibility piece, the smart music, and we're all working on that this year. There's also, I'm very much like Mrs. St. George's in that it's sort of more personal to the students, and what they'll learn skills, and we'll do a slate of concerts and events and things like that. But one of the things that I'm going to be working on this year is to get them to take more ownership of the group and to work more collaboratively and give them more say in what we do and how we do it. So, because they don't, like, there's a lot of technique and musicality in what they do, but sometimes they just soak in that, but they also need to soak in the social experience, and I want them to know a little bit more about how things are run and why things are done the way they are, and see if they come up with ways that it works better for them.
Interrupt a second. What's smart music?
It's a digital. It's an online platform where they can basically practice with a computer, where it'll evaluate whether they're doing the right rhythms and the right pitches. So the program, you put the piece into the program, or it's already there for you, and then they're able to work with that. They can play it so they can hear it, or they can play with it and be evaluated.
And it takes out some of the mundane parts of music teaching, that being pitch and rhythm. We don't like to spend a lot of time on teaching pitch and rhythm because it's something that frankly isn't very difficult. While it might be difficult to actually play.
You haven't heard me play it in a group context, but go ahead.
It might be difficult to play the instrument. That's not necessarily what our expertise, or it is our expertise, but it's not the extent of our expertise, where we really want to be getting beyond just pitch and rhythm and talking about expressiveness and talking about tone quality and intonation and talking about phrasing and so many of the very, very complicated, nuanced parts of the arts. Pitch and rhythm is just putting your finger down, at least for my instruments, at the right time with the right posture and things. So those are things that we love for them to be able to work on at home with some feedback, because not everybody's able to say, I just played something, I made a mistake. I know I made a mistake. Maybe they don't know they made a mistake. So it's a platform that will help us, be more efficient in the classroom.
Yeah.
And I think mastery of those skills allows us to transcend into what music really is, an emotional expression of love, passion, feelings that we want our students to be embracing.
That's one of my goals for the year, and continues to be, is showing my students the relevance of the arts in their social and emotional health, and making sure they understand that their social and emotional health is just as important as their professional success. And the arts are just a wonderful way for them to get there, and to have that as part of their school day is really special, and making sure they understand that is always been a big goal. I had a good experience in high school. I think we can all say that we had a good experience growing up in our programs. So I always think to myself, I have to make sure that they're having that experience at Westford Academy, and they're looking back in it someday with really positive memories.
How do you guys generate community support, both in terms of attendance and being on board and generating money for programs and stuff?
We start with community access television.
Glad I could help. Continue.
We absolutely have great support within our administration, and I can say that without hesitation, in that we have wonderful administrators, and that's where it starts, is having a supportive curriculum coordinator, supportive principals, and supportive parents as well that understand the value that we have to the community. Beyond that, I know for my program in particular, it's a fairly visible group, so it's kind of hard to miss my kids when they're out walking down the middle of the street. It's not hard to see where they're at and what they're doing. And beyond that, we work with the local organizations. We bring our students out to nursing homes. We bring our students to certainly Memorial Day and veterans events and things throughout the community as well. The arts are most definitely an asset to our community, and we like to show our constituents what they're getting for their investment.
I think we have a responsibility to share our music and our passion with our community, and we're happy to do that for the Westford Council for Nonviolence. Every year we perform for their Light Up the Night. We perform at the Senior Center Holiday Luncheon, and I think it's our duty to help them back, and I'm sure they feel that they can support us because we're out there sharing what we can with them.
And we're so lucky. I never have a problem finding students.
Yeah,
no,
there's a lot of demand for what we do. I mean, in that way, we're sort of just plugging into a vein of enthusiasm that the kids bring, and their parents want them to grow and develop personally, not just the technique, but they want them to be exposed in a way that they can explore the emotional, and they're using their minds and their bodies and everything at once. There's so much like just growth and development, like all the research on that side from psychology about how it helps a person develop, that there's a lot of people that come to us. They come looking. I've had just this last year, I think it was 3 people, who were shopping towns because they weren't sure where they were going to go, and they were checking out the program. So there's definitely a lot of interest that we try to build on.
Mm-hmm. Any success stories you'd like to share?
You're successful. Well, they're out there. I always look forward to the collaboration with Mike Towers and doing the musical in the fall, working with the theater arts students. It's a huge event. The music kids love to get involved with that. I talked to Mr. Arsenault about which of his students best fits in, and I get my students together, and then most of the singers are Karen's students, and so I always, part of it may be that it's just fun for me, but that's a great collaboration that we do, and then we do concerts together.
My most exciting experiences as a teacher are usually when I'm not in front of the students. And that probably sounds a little weird, but I love when I show up somewhere or when I'm at the concert and I'm not necessarily in front of them directing them. As much of a thrill as that is, and I certainly do it frequently, I love when I arrive and they're already playing. Or if I go to an event where I know we've kind of scheduled for students to be there, or they've scheduled by themselves to be playing there, like last spring. I had a quartet of students play at the first Concord Jazz Festival. We were asked to put together a high school group for that, and I said, well, this is great. I'm just going to punt it to the students. I'll play 3 jazz festivals this year myself as a professional. I'd much rather have the students get this experience to see what it's like arranging for this situation. So they took advantage of it. They made their own set list. They rehearsed their tunes. They got everything together outside of school. They met in school, and they certainly are in my program. So that was our connection to Westford Academy. But then I took my daughters, and I went to downtown Concord on a great Sunday, and I walked into the festival, and I saw my 4 students up there performing in front of hundreds of people. And of course, there's that part of me that's, as a teacher, thinking, well, gosh, I'm not there telling them everything they're supposed to be doing right now. Is this out of my control? And yes, it was out of my control, but they were absolutely magical. It was great to see that. So those are often my most exciting times, when I see our students putting into practice what we talk about without us being the ones that, directly doing it for them.
I think it's so hard to nail down a success story. I think I have 150 success stories every year in the students that leave my classroom at the end of the year. I think they all grow tremendously through the art that they're practicing every day in my classroom. And I am just so rewarded daily by my students and what they're able to accomplish. So there's success stories every single day.
Yeah.
Is there anything you'd like to add before we close?
We really appreciate the support
Yeah.
from the community.
Yeah, and thank you for having us.
Oh,
Yes,
thank you. Thank you. Let's not just hear it for the bands, let's hear it for the Westford Academy Music Department. Makes me proud to be a musician.
Thank you.
Thank you. See you next time.